you can figure out a lot of things when you have 7 years to figure it out. What does 7 years have to do with anything? Well, as I was coming back to the complex here, after having a lunch with my parents today, I got a text from a friend who, with the question, it was a question. It said 8/5/2015, question mark, question mark. And I thought, oh, yeah, today is the 5th of August. That means it was 7 years ago to this very moment almost that I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say fighting for my life, but I was definitely fighting for a quality of life. About 3 p.m. on August the 5th of 2015, I was on the telephone with State Representative Bill Zedler, now retired, and I had a stroke. I started slurring my speech, but I was still conscious at the time, and he diagnosed it, recognized it over the phone, drove to my house. By the time he drove to the house, I had passed out in the kitchen and was paralyzed on my left side. But fortunately, he recognized it and he took the action that was necessary. And so when he called 911, he was able to give them all of the specifics. So by 7, 8 o'clock that night, I was in ICU at John Peter Smith Hospital and starting to get movement back in my left side. All I really remember that time is the nurses saying, waking me up and having me try to raise my left, I guess both arms, but my left arm for sure and my left leg. You know, they'd have me lifted and then push on their hand and that kind of stuff until I got movement back, and then it seemed like every half an hour they would come in and do it again. So a lot of that time period is fuzzy, but what I do remember is that my friend Esteban showed up, and he stayed. If my bed was facing this way, there was a window over there, and I don't know if it was a window seat or a couch or a pull-out or what it was, but I remember he stayed there the entire night so that he could update people on Facebook. And he did a very good job of it. But let me back up a little bit further. Not only did Representative Zedler call 911, the fire department came and kicked in my door and kind of, hey, we think you're having a stroke. And I'm like, oh, that's probably a good diagnosis. Or I said something like, oh, that makes sense. But my left side was paralyzed, and so I don't really remember them getting me on the gurney or getting me. I do remember rolling out the door, and Representative Zedler was standing there on the sidewalk, just looked like he'd been run over by a truck. He was kind of devastated. I don't think he realized exactly what he had done, but he did save my life, and over the last 7 years, I've had plenty of time to figure some stuff out. And one of the things I've had to figure out was why didn't I die that day? The most common statement when I'd run into people or they'd call me or whatever was, well, God's not finished with you yet. And that had to be the case because Satan threw everything he had at me that day to try to take me out of the picture. So yes, Jesus Christ is the great physician. I give him all the glory. I thank Representative Zedler. I thank Esteban, I think all the staff and the practitioners at JPS Hospital, the MedStar paramedics that showed up, the fire department that kicked down the door. Everybody had a role, but without the miracle working power brought on by people praying. And how did the people know to pray? Well, Representative Zedler, apparently after I got on the road and they knew I was going to JPS, if I remember correctly, he called the chairman of the Tarrant County Republican Party and told her, and she called Dolores Pell, who I was supposed to be meeting to watch the first debate when Donald Trump was running for president. So that's been only 7 years ago. Oh yeah, he was just one term, unfortunately. But anyway, so I guess that was his run. And the very first debate, we were going to have a watch party in Arlington. And I actually think I was supposed to be picking up Rosie to take her, but Dolores put on Facebook, oh, pray for Chip. I think he may have had a stroke or something along those lines. And through that, Kim Martin saw it and reached out to my sister, who they had on the phone by the time I got rolled into the ER. I'd never been to that hospital in my life, but apparently Kim must have told her where where I was going, and then Jan called the hospital. So then she tried to kind of update people after I got out of the hospital. She determined that was a full-time job, trying to keep all my friends updated. But most of you know that story, and if you don't, that's a quick recap. I really wanted to talk about today. Well, not today, but what's happening in my life in this time period. I have been through a lot of changes over those past 7 years. Let's call them refinements. Every time I got a thought, I took an action. I really wish that the doctors had told me how to get healthy instead of telling me how to get fat. I followed the medical advice for the first 2 or 3 years, and all I could do was gain weight, and they wanted me to lose weight. And it's not really their fault that the U.S. government food guidelines cause you to get fat. And that's all they're allowed to teach, technically, especially if they're in a big conglomerate, or their hospital will fire them if they give any non-traditional advice. So really in this country, the medical field is kind of stacked against us. So you have to learn on your own. And let me do an intro here. I'm Chip, and you're either watching this on CP59 Fit channel or the Chillin' with Chip channel. I think I'm going to post it on both. But either way, there's a Koji app in the show notes, or Koji link down in the show notes will have the link to the other channel. Because usually I try to put the health on one channel and the lifestyle on the Chillin' channel. But since this kind of covers both, I think I'll just post it on both. And it's been a little bit too long since I posted one on CP59 Fit. But that's part of the transition I'm going through. So I'm moving more to the lifestyle and low stress, which I've been aiming for 7 years now. And technically, the only thing I think the doctor may have told me that was accurate was I need to get 8 hours of sleep every night. And thank you, last night I had a full 8 hours of deep sleep according to the sleep tracker app that I have on the phone. But let me rethink here and get back to, oh, of course there's an airplane flying by. Yes, I'm at my parents' community, and we are on the flight path to Dulles Airport, and when the planes are landing from the north, they're barely above the apartment buildings here. I think that's why they only are allowed to go 4 stories tall, because that one sounded like it went right over, but I did pause it. But that was enough of a distraction to knock me off of course. So back to the last 7 years, I have taken steps to research what should be the proper human diet, and I have tried to adapt to that. It doesn't always work when I'm here with my parents because they have restaurants and cafes and all that we eat at here on property run by the community. And I think they're required to serve according to the food pyramid also. So yes, I could probably make it work, but it's challenging. So when I'm here, I don't really get too concerned about it, hoping that what I've done when I'm not here is enough to, I guess, kind of keep me safe. And then next Thursday night, I start another 3.5-week house sit just north of here. I don't know if that way is north or not, but let's assume it is for the sake of the video. I'm out on their screen porch right now, overlooking a courtyard, and they are across the courtyard in the clubhouse playing the Friday night marbles. I usually play marbles with them on Monday night. And that's been a big blessing to be able to be up here and in this area more. That was probably the biggest change I made last October, was when I left the job with the Fort Worth Police Department as a civilian. Then I gave up my apartment in Fort Worth when the lease expired near the end of February. Then I rented an apartment in Warrenton, and recently I gave it up. Good gracious, here comes another one. I rented an apartment in Warrenton from a friend, and I just gave that up as of August 1st because I started house sitting the end of July, and I'm booked until basically Thanksgiving, so there's no need to be paying rent if I'm not going to be staying there. Like I say, the next one is right up the street here, about 3.5 miles away, so I'll be close to my parents but not underfoot. And they are in fairly good health, but of course we're all getting older. so I thought being closer would be beneficial. But I think the job I started on July 1st of this year, a fully remote job with a 501c3 charity based in Baltimore. And it's not faith-based, but it is has some faith overtones or overtures. It technically is a ministry, but we don't portray it as a ministry. In fact, I got some clarification on that on our staff meeting last night, and I'm more thrilled than ever to be working with them. My actual title is Event and Fundraising Director for the City Fam headquarters. So I do plan on having an event in Texas, hopefully near the end of this year, maybe between Thanksgiving and Christmas, maybe after the first of the year, I don't know. I've contacted an event planner down there that I work with, but many, many years ago, I went forward at my church and made a profession of faith that I would be in full-time ministry later in life. And I guess this is later in life. And even though I don't technically work for a ministry, I feel that this job is a ministry, and it has the intention to be a ministry, but it's kind of a cloaked ministry. The feeling I got, or the thing I determined through the discussion we had last night when I kind of asked what the role is, or why it's not a faith-based type of thing, was we kind of look at ourselves as maybe the same way that the disciples of Jesus looked at themselves when he was starting the church 2,000 years ago. And no, we're not trying to start a church, but we are maybe trying to correct some of the wrongs that churches have done to people, to create a community of like-minded people that are trying to improve themselves. And ultimately, we think that a relationship with Jesus Christ will be a good way to help you become your best self. That's kind of a synopsis, and I will be talking about more of that later. But yes, I can line up with that philosophy, and I can kind of do the mission work like I did in the Czech Republic. I couldn't really talk to anybody there either because I didn't know the language that well, but I could be an example of how Christ lived. And I've always tried to do that. So hopefully my beliefs, this charity's beliefs, and God doing what God wants me to do, maybe that's why I'm still alive 7 years later and getting healthier every day. Well, my health is kind of like maybe the trajectory of gold or silver since Nixon took the U.S. really took the world off the gold standard. If you look over the last 50 years, it's generally been an upwards trajectory, but there have been dives along the way. There have been spikes up, spikes down. But, you know, when you draw the moving average, it's a slightly upward slope. That's how my health is. Some days I'm good, some days I'm bad. But all in all, over the last 7 years, I've generally been improving my health. And I may not be as strong as I was before the stroke. You know, I'm not trying to overdo anything physically, but that's all right because I'm mainly working with my mind now, and I'm basically working with my mouth. My mouth on this channel, or on these channels. It's more about what I say than being able to leap tall buildings or move big boxes. I have been doing quite a bit of moving here lately, but I have to say I am more than thrilled with the way things are turning out with this house sitting. I even got a direct message from one of the Republican ladies in Texas. I'm going to pause this again. She was with one of the groups I did a lot of photography for, and she was basically asking, you know, how did I become a house sitter? Could I inform her, because she's considering doing that, and I think a lot of my friends will consider doing it when I give you all the details. So maybe I'll make a movie or a video on Chillin' with Chip tomorrow or later this weekend, later this week, about how I became a house sitter and why I became a house sitter. But I will send her a message here before long, and there is also a RAF, stands for Refer a Friend, link in my Koji app Same place you look to find the other channel. If you want to become a trusted house sitter, you can join through that link, and when you pay your fee, I will get 2 extra months added to my account. I'm already up to 4 free months, so keep up the good work. Thank you. I'm not even sure who the 2 people are that signed up, but thank you. I'm also going to be adding a Christian Healthcare Ministries, and I think I've already added the Papa app link. There was something else I needed to add. I don't remember what it was, but you can find any link that I'm affiliated with on the Koji app. And Christian Healthcare Paid, that whole, that's it's a Christian healthcare sharing plan that qualifies as having insurance through Obamacare. Even though it is not insurance, when you have an incident like I had, you tell the hospital your private pay, and they generally give you the insurance discount. And then you send all the paperwork off to Christian Healthcare Ministries, generally through an email, you know, scan it in and email it off, and then they send you a check, and then you pay the hospital. They paid over $20,000 for my, I don't know if it was, I guess it was 2 nights in ICU and 2 nights in step down, but 4 nights in the hospital, because the hospital gave me like a $10,000 discount because I was cash pay. So I guess that's like 30%. But anyway, very happy with Christian Healthcare, and I'm Christian Healthcare Ministries, and I am back with them again today. Like I say, I have to add the my link for that to Koji, and what happens with that is once somebody signs up, if they pay for 3 months, I generally get a month free, and I'm only paying a couple $100 for the Premier plan, and I got the Premier plan with Trusted House Sitters. So life is good. I've survived 7 more years. I've learned a whole lot, and I'm glad y'all are along for the ride. These channels are going to get a whole lot more valuable as the user base grows, and as I get a little more transparent and share a little more in-depth medical information as to what maybe you should and shouldn't be eating according to your body, not according to the government health plan or meal plan that doesn't have any science behind it. Let me say that again. The USDA food pyramid has extremely little scientific proof behind it. I think what it has behind it is food companies that grow grains and profit from Americans eating grains and pasta, which are grains, and unhealthy. So the pharmaceuticals may even be financing it because they all want us fat and sick. But anyway, that's another story. This is going kind of long. I've survived 7 years since my major stroke, and I'm thrilled that you're here with me. Let's really move forward in what I was destined to do, and the reason I'm still alive. And thank you, Jesus, and thank you, all my friends, for being with me. Glad to know you. Oh, and I guess the whole point of this thing was I was going to start a walk and talk tip of the week on Fridays, but the rain here kept me on the porch, which I chose this location because this porch swing was actually at my parents' house before they moved here, and they actually got the contract to sell the house either the day of the stroke or while they were down there visiting me in recovery. So anyway, there's a lot of connections with this porch swing that they brought to their new porch. Well, I guess this is called a screen. Well, it was a screen porch there too. This is a 4th floor balcony that's screened in. So anyway, a lot of little sentimental stuff today, a little bit of emotion. Thank you, Sandy, for reminding me about it. Thank you, Jen, Dolores, Kim, Jan, Bill, Esteban. You'd think with all this rain there wouldn't be any pollen, but there is. Thank you, everybody who prayed, who came by to visit me, who offered to cook dinner, who, like Mel and Brian, for buying me a gas grill so I could eat healthier. I just wish the doctors had told me to eat more meat back then. But eating meat is one of the main answers. So my tip for today, which I'm not going to dwell on a lot, is never take your life or your relationships for granted. It can end any moment. And that's another reason I didn't shave today. I usually like to shave before I do the videos, but if you're going to have a stroke and end up in the hospital, you don't know when that's going to happen, so you're not always going to look perfect. So I'm not looking perfect now, but I do appreciate each and every one of you being here. Love you. God bless. Let's do another 7 or 17 or 70. Who knows? But let's stay on this rotating ball as long as we can. Bye-bye.